All right. Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use live at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host, and it is June the 11th, 2025. And I know you're probably wondering what's been going on, what's been happening, why haven't you been here? I'll tell you why. I've been going through some things personally, some family stuff that's happening. So, in order to help take care of that family member, I had to step away for a little bit. So, just give us some grace during this summer season because we may be in and out, and I might have something a little special for you on those weeks that I can't be here live. Maybe a little replay or something like that, or maybe I don't know. I'll come up with something. But anyway, so this is why we're just going through that season. You know how it is when you're dealing with family and life be life and things happen. So there you go. And that's why we haven't been live. But I wanted to make sure I hopped in there today and come up with our affirmation for today on this June the 11th, 2025. And our affirmation is if you're serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If you're not, you'll find an excuse. I want to say that again. If you are serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If you're not, you'll find an excuse. So that is our affirmation from today from the You Are a Badass calendar by Jen Sincero. If you want to get that, you can always hop on over to Amazon and look for it there. It's just where I got it. All right, so there's some news that we want to get into today, and then some further announcements that we'll get into the end. If you have anything that's coming up in the community and you wanted me to share that, let me know. Hop on and give me a comment. Let me know if you have something that you wanted to share to our community. But let's go ahead and get with our first news story today. So this is coming out of Billings, and I believe it's Montana. Yeah, Billings, Montana. And it says, woman who took mom from Billings nursing home charged with felony. Now, I'm bringing this up because there's something that's going on here in the state of Indiana that we're going to talk about later. And this is where there's causes of concerns about what I just found out that's happening in our state here. So let's get into this story here, though. So on Friday, the Rapid City Police Department arrested um, Tarma. Make sure I get this bigger so I can see it. Tama LaRae Donnelly from her South Dakota home on a warrant for her role in the alleged kidnapping last week of her mother from a Billings nursing home. So she basically came in, took her mom out for LOA, then brought back, apparently. Donnelly, 53, is now at the Pennington County Jail in South Dakota, where she's in the process of being extradited to Yellowstone County, where she was charged with custodial interference, which is a felony. So it says on June the 1st, Donnelly removed her 76-year-old mother, Donna Prescott, from her nursing facility, Absent Meadows Health and Rehabilitation Center on the west end of Billings. Billings police posted an alert on Facebook asking residents to be on the lookout for Donnelly and her brother, Kit Donnelly. MTN contacted Donnelly and Prescott immediately after the news broke. Prescott told MTN that she had left Aspen Meadows on her own free will and preferred to be with her children rather than Aspen Meadows. And so on the surface of it, it looks like, hey, mom didn't want to be in the nursing home anymore. Daughter came and got her. That's what it looks like. But there's more to the story, and this is why I bring this out. You need to make sure you do things correctly and legally, okay, so that you don't get into these situations. So Prescott told the news that she felt safe, loved, and cared for, which she probably did. And I'm not saying that her daughter wasn't doing a good job taking care of her, but for whatever reason, the daughter wasn't in charge. So Donnelly told MTN she did not kidnap her mom. MTN spoke to Twito on Tuesday after receiving the charge documents, which were filed on June 3rd, that claimed that Donnelly kidnapped her mother. So then there becomes this disparity. So basically, what custodial interference means is someone without lawful authority interferes with somebody who has lawful authority over a person, such as a child or a person who's been deemed mentally incompetent, said Twito. Donnelly told MTN on June 1st she was notarized by a Billings notary and became Prescott's medical power of attorney. The charging documents say otherwise. So unfortunately, she would have to have her mom to sign this and say that she became the power of attorney. So in the documents, Prescott's power of attorney, named as 90-year-old MD, or Prescott's aunt, did not give the Donnellys permission to take Prescott out of facility. The documents also say that the notary, identified as MR, contacted law enforcement after seeing that Prescott was missing. The charging documents refer to the morning that Prescott was removed from Aspen Meadows. So she came in, thought she was, I don't know how, getting power of attorney, and there's some discrepancy in this. So MD is 90 years of age and reported that for nearly 30 minutes, the defendant and co-defendant refused to leave her residence until she gave them permission to visit DP. MD reported, as she was in fear of physical harm for both the defendant and co-defendant. This is from the Yellowstone Deputy Attorney Cole Catlin. The documents also allege that Prescott, the mother, had dementia and was unable to make medical and financial decisions for herself. In a May interview with MTN News, Donnelly said her mom was medically competent. According to Twitter, Prescott will likely soon return to Aspen Meadows. As of yesterday, she was in a hospital facility in South Dakota, and there were caregivers from this community who were going to be sent to get her, he said. Once Donnelly is extradited to Montana, she will appear in front of the district judge to address the charge. If convicted of custodial interference, Donnelly faces a punishment up to 10 years in prison, a $50,000 fine, or both, according to Twitter. So we'll see what happens, but I'm saying that to say, when you're making these decisions for your family members, make sure that you do this in the correct way, legally. I'm bringing that up because of this next story that I want to talk about right here, what's happening in Indiana. And I wish I could get to the Indianapolis Star story, but I can't because I haven't paid for the service. I think I let it lapse and forgot to pay for it. And I just didn't have time to deal with it today. But this one says, this is from the Republic News, and it says, measure updating adult protective services glides through committee. Okay. So this, and I'm going to tell you why this is important. I'm going to tell you in a moment. So it says improvements are on the way for Indiana's Adult Protective Services, the initiative protecting abused, exploited, and neglected adults, after a 12-0 committee vote Monday morning. So this was a month ago that this broke. Senator Mike Crowder, Republican from Greenfield, told committee members that the cleanup bill removes antiquated language and offers the Family and Social Services Administration more flexibility in drawing up contracts for adult protective services. Senate Bill 182 would specify that the entire chunk of Indiana code dedicated to adult protective services would apply to reports of suspected abuse, neglect, and exploitation that are made by phone or online. To report suspected abuse, neglect, or exploitation of an endangered adult, call Indiana's toll-free hotline number at 800-992-6978 or fill out an online form. So this is what it says. However, I can tell you, because this happened this very week, we had a situation where a report was attempted to be made for adult protective services, and because of the changes that are being made on the state level, they're not opening up new cases. Because until this is all washed out at the end of the month on June 30th, essentially adult protective services is closed because they have such a backlog of old cases that they aren't accepting new cases. So now we have a gap in services. So this is what's happening, and this is why you should be concerned. It says it will remove habitual drunkenness or excessive drug use from the list of conditions that might render adults incapable of taking care of themselves or their belongings and at risk of harm. Left in the definition of an endangered adult would be dementia, intellectual disability, mental illness, or other incapacities. It's not something that requires an investigation of law enforcement as far as are they being exploited financially or being harmed in some way by another individual. It's more considered self-harm, Kreider told the Capital Chronicle. Okay? He said the bill's information sharing provisions would make sure Hoosiers with substance abuse disorders are appropriately referred over to the Division of Mental Health and Addiction instead of the Division of Aging. Okay? Other provisions would introduce a record keeping minimum. Let the Adult Protective Services Unit restrict records releases to the extent that information is needed to coordinate or implement services and require only an alleged victim's consent for release. So here's a problem. You're having someone who has dementia, mental illness, and other things that need to be incapacitated, and they are the ones giving consent. So if they're feeling pressured by family, how are you going to obtain that consent for release? And they can't sign a consent to put themselves in the hospital or any of those things because legally they're determined to be incapacitated. So those are questions that I have. It says also the proposal arose from previous successful legislation letting FSSA contract out to other entities when county prosecutors didn't want to renew their contracts. A few issues came up at FSSA, began to try to develop the contract language, he said. The bill removes language requiring the Indiana Prosecutors Attorneys Council to concur in standards of practice and exceptions that currently allow for an Adult Protective Services unit or staffer to be appointed as a representative or guardian for an endangered adult. It also tweaks how cases are reported to law enforcement and others. Kreider said that less than 2% of cases are referred for prosecution and even fewer are prosecuted. The Indiana Capitol Chronicle covers state government and state legislature, so you can get more information there. So they did have an article. But here's what's happening is that they're turning, what people need to understand is that they're turning Adult Protective Services now over to a private entity, meaning that a for-profit private entity will now be in charge of Adult Protective Services protecting the public. That would be like saying we're going to turn the police department over to a private institution to handle, or saying we're going to turn the prosecutor's office to a private institution to handle because the state doesn't want to foot the bill anymore. And like what's happened in healthcare, when this happens, you start to see quality, commitment to services go down as the private entity looks to ramp up their profit. So this begs us to, as Hoosiers, to take a look at this, to keep an eye on this, and speak to our legislators and those who are involved, and find out what actually is going on with Adult Protective Services, and why that now that you have over 15 days left in the month, and now we can't get anything done. So I have questions on that, and you should have questions on that, because as we privatize everything, like we did with our toll roll and privatize things, sold off assets, and now we're crying we have no money, spent the money like in the first year or two. Yeah. We privatize our prisons, and you see what's happening there. So again, I'm saying that this is something we as Hoosiers need to keep an eye on and see what's happening. And the sad thing is, with Adult Protective Services, it's such a small part of the budget. It just makes me wonder, are they now going to outsource the Division of Children's Services? Is DCS now going to be outsourced as well? And so I really want to know more what's happening with this. If someone has any comments and you're on the inside, let me know, because I really want to know what's happening. All right, let's get into this story, because this is another doozy. All right, so this is about a nursing home case in Cook County, so it's Illinois. And I found this interesting, what's happening in Chicago. Was this case, because we were having conversations about what happens here in Indiana. And so this says a family awarded $5.5 million in nursing home neglect case tied for largest in Cook County. This is from Fox 32 Chicago. And here's why I'm bringing this up, because if you're working in these facilities, you have to make sure you're following what you're supposed to do. And I'm saying this for nurses. Hey, you cover yourself. Cover yourself. So it said it took 3 days to sit a jury, a week to present the case, and just 3 hours of deliberation for a Cook County jury to find the South Suburban nursing home negligent in the death of an elderly patient. It says that Brooks, the resident, missed 13 days of needed dialysis treatments at Landmark of Richmond Park, leading to his death from toxic waste buildup shortly after being found unresponsive. So here's what it goes on to say. Brooks, 85, was admitted to Landmark of Richmond Park in 2020 following uh, a brain bleed. After a strong recovery at RML Specialty Hospital, he was transferred to Landmark, the only nearby facility offering on site. Is this interesting? On site dialysis through a third party called Renviva. 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 According to court testimony, Brooks required dialysis 3 times a week, but he did not receive a single treatment during his 13-day stay. On December 7, 2020, he was later found unresponsive. The paramedics revived him. He died 3 days later from toxic waste buildup in his body. So Brooks' daughter, Andrea Brooks, says the family's world has been turned upside down. He was submitted into Landmark. My mom would call every day, at least 10 times a day. We never got a call back, she said. He went through multi-organ failure, system failure. The signs and symptoms he experienced as a result of that: pain for one, difficulty breathing. He was struggling and we didn't know this. We weren't able to help him, Brooks' granddaughter, Catherine Boston, stated. Attorneys with Malman Law, who represented the family, said the verdict sends a clear message to nursing homes across Illinois. Neglect isn't just unacceptable, it's costly. If a loved one does have a complaint or believe that there is negligence, obviously I would recommend that they contact a lawyer, but they should also contact the Illinois Department of Public Health because they're the agency that would go into the facility right away upon receiving a complaint and investigate. So, again, my condolences to the family, but I'm just curious. He was supposed to have dialysis there. What was happening and why wasn't the company, and it's I haven't looked in it, but someone who's there, maybe you can look into it, is have their own in-house dialysis unit, and it's probably owned, I don't know for sure, possibly owned by the parent company. But my question is, he was there for 13 days and nobody thought to say, hey, aren't you supposed to have dialysis and that's why you're here at our facility? Because otherwise, why wouldn't they just, and if they didn't have room or capacity, why didn't they send them to another outpatient dialysis clinic? So those are questions that I have. But yeah, so again, nurses, cover yourself in these situations. Cover yourself in these situations. Okay, we're going to have one more news story before we take a quick break. This is coming from WSB TV Atlanta. And it says, man charged with posing as a nurse dispensing morphine. So a man already under arrest for impersonating a nurse is facing dozens of new charges for illegally dispensing medications, including morphine, to patients at a Buchanan nursing home. Lonnie Relaford, 56, was one of many on a state registry that keeps track of nursing imposters. Investigators told Channel 2's Tom Reagan he worked at Buchanan Healthcare for a 10-day period from late March to early April. They say he got the temp job during a false identification of false LPN certification. Relaford is in custody at the Fulton County Jail. He was administering drugs, narcotics. We have 49 counts on him as of how, or I should say of now, but it says how. Said Major Blaine Cochran with the Buchanan Police. Cochran said that including the morphine, other painkillers, and scheduled 1 through 5 drugs. The nursing home contacted police after seeing the channel to report on Relaford's arrest last week in Atlanta for falsely impersonating a nurse to get a job there. So again, I'm just curious. This person has had false credentials, and I don't know if they've been checking these credentials or what, but make sure you keep track of what's going on in your licensed nurses. So this is why I bring this up. Anytime there's fraud or something like that, I want to give you the heads up. Hey, keep track of what's going on with your nursing license, because people are out here impersonating people and try to do all kinds of stuff. All right. Let's take a quick break and then we're going to come back for our next story and update on United Health. Here we go. Bullying, poor staffing, stagnant wages, no work life balance. Stop being eaten alive. Find your joy, strength, and happiness. Become the leader you are always meant to be. Nurse entrepreneurs are using their skills to launch successful businesses every day. Make your dreams come true. Join the Nurse Shark Academy and come feel the sun at the nursesharkacademy.biz. All right, and our latest story in United Health. We broke the story, when they had the story about United Health with the whistleblower claims. This is also an update from The Guardian. It says United Health faces federal scrutiny into whistleblower claims. Attention comes in wake of ex-employees' allegations that insurers paid nursing homes to reduce hospital transfers and use improper tactics to gain Medicare Advantage enrollees. And so there's been a lot of discussion. Not just with United Healthcare, but other Medicare Advantage plans are now under scrutiny as well. U.S. lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are raising concerns and seeking investigation in the wake of Guardian reported on whistleblower claims about practices within United Health Group's nursing home partnership programs. One U.S. senator has announced he is launching an investigation, and two U.S. representatives are now calling the U.S. Department of Justice to expand its reported investigations of the nation's largest healthcare conglomerate. Others said they are troubled by whistleblower allegations reported by The Guardian, including claims that United Health paid bonuses to nursing homes to help reduce residents' hospital transfers and use improper sales tactics to get nursing home residents to sign up for the company's Medicare Advantage plans. Two Democratic members of Congress, Representatives Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez of New York and Lloyd Doggett of Texas, filed a letter on Monday that urges the Department of Justice to thoroughly review new revelations from investigations reporting and whistleblower complaints, which suggests that United Health may have engaged in illegal activities. The Guardian's findings reveal the need for a wide-ranging investigation by the Department of Justice into years, if not decades, of potential waste, fraud, and abuse at United Health, the letter read. The lawmakers are demanding a briefing on current and planned investigations by July 14th. And so this story broke, and now our officials are now looking into it even more closely. But what was interesting in the previous story, it talked about how some of the nurse practitioners that were tasked to work there and were working for the company felt pressured to keep people out of the hospital and to keep them at the building. And of course, obviously, we want to treat people where we can inside the building. I recognize that. But sometimes it seemed, or allegedly, to the detriment of the individual. So let's get into it more. So it says United Healthcare vigorously, obviously, denies the whistleblower's allegations and says that the Guardian's reporting on these issues is, quote, blatantly false and misleading. In response to a question about the two representatives' letter, the company said of the Department of Justice has already declined to pursue the matter, a reference to the agency's previous decisions not to intervene in two whistleblower lawsuits against United Health filed under the U.S. False Claims Act. One of those lawsuits was ultimately dropped, and the other is pending in federal court in Georgia. Another Democrat, the Oregon Senator Ron Wyden, announced last month on X that his office was, quote, launching a full investigation to verify these whistleblower accounts. This reporting demands further inquiry. Nobody deserves to have their medical care jeopardized to pad insurance company profits, Wyden, the ranking member of the Senate's Finance Committee, said. My staff on the Finance Committee have a decade-long record of thorough and objective investigations that follow the facts toward solutions that improve federal health care policy for all Americans. Okay. So Senator Josh Hawley, a Missouri Republican who sits on the Senate Investigation Subcommittee, said it's alarming to hear these serious allegations about the company's practices. I look forward to securing justice for patients, policyholders, whistleblowers alike who've been harmed by insurance companies. Okay. So again, a lot of smoke blowing, right? Another Republican, Georgia Representative Buddy Carter, expressed similar concerns. If the allegations are true, United Health must be held responsible for the gross abuse of patients. Patients should always come before profits. Okay. So here are some of the allegations, and it says Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut Ranking member of the Senate Investigation Subcommittee said the courage and conviction of the whistleblowers would serve as an impetus for reform, shining a light on abuses of consumer trust is a call to action and a demand for accountability. United Health says its partnerships with nursing homes ensure better care for seniors through, quote, an on site clinical care, personalized treatment plans, and enhanced coordination among caregivers. The company says that these arrangements have been highly successful in helping nursing homes prevent unnecessary hospital stays that can lead to serious issues such as delirium, falls, pressure injuries, and sometimes even fatal consequences. The two whistleblowers who work for United Health as nurse practitioners submitted sworn declarations in May alleging that the company had used improper tactics to reduce hospital transfers for ailing nursing home residents. Their declarations were submitted to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, the Washington State Attorney General's Office, and Congress, according to Whistleblower Aid, the nonprofit assisting both nurse practitioners. Whistleblower Maxwell Olivet's declaration, first reported on by The Guardian in May, says he witnessed United Health, quote, delay and deny medically necessary emergency care to prevent nursing home residents in order to retain more money from the payments that the company was receiving from the U.S. government's Medicare Advantage program. Under Medicare Advantage, a private alternative to traditional Medicare, this is why I bring these concerns up about adult protective services in Indiana, but let's go on. A private alternative to traditional Medicare, the federal government pays insurers a fixed sum to cover senior medical services. The less insurers spend on covering medical services, the more in public dollars they have left over. Oliver's declaration alleges that United Health, quote, actively avoided medically necessary hospitalizations in serious life-threatening situations, or situations to avoid imminent death or incredibly catastrophic results to keep their costs down, and drove vulnerable patients towards signing do not resuscitate or DNRs and do not hospitalize orders to avoid providing hospital services for life-threatening illnesses. United Health noted that the Department of Justice declined to join the lawsuit that Olivant filed against the company and later dropped. The company said Olivant, quote, is not in a position to assess the effectiveness of our programs. He lacks both the necessary data and the expertise. So, sounds like a bit of gaslighting right there, but okay. The second whistleblower, whose declaration was filed anonymously, worked with United Health for several years. Her declaration says her experiences as a nurse practitioner within its nursing home programs gave her, quote, firsthand insight into the evolution and impact of substandard care practices resulting from the training, culture, processes, and bonus system of delays and denials of medically necessary care. That declaration criticizes the company's aggressive push for DNRs and says that the decision to receive life-saving care should rest with the patient or their legal representative, not myself, and certainly not the insurance company. United Healthcare said the allegation in the anonymous whistleblower's declaration shows she, quote, did not fully understand our clinical model, and that her perspective, quote, does not reflect the dedication and excellence of the many outstanding clinicians who understand the impact they have in supporting their patients and improving health outcomes. The company also denies claims regarding DNRs. At no time have we encouraged or pushed nursing home residents to sign a DNR directive, the United Health representative said. Our healthcare providers are ethically bound to respect patient autonomy and support informed decision-making without coercion. So my question is, are you coercing the nurse practitioners to participate in this? Because it's one thing to say, okay, well, we're not going to coerce the patient, but are you putting pressure on nurse practitioners to make sure they get it signed, make sure they get it done, make sure they don't, send them out? And if they don't, for the people that they keep in, the less people they send out, do they get a bonus for that? So those are the questions I have. I'm not sure if that's true. I'm just asking the question. So the Guardian's previous reporting also references allegations relating to the legal claims of a third whistleblower, Brooke Gonite, a former salesperson for United Health's nursing home program. Gonite alleges in a lawsuit in federal court in Georgia that United Health wrongly solicited and enrolled vulnerable elderly patients for its nursing home programs through improper marketing tactics, including violations of HIPAA, the Federal Medical Privacy Act, and paid kickbacks to nursing homes to obtain illegal referrals to the residents. And I kind of wonder, because I can't tell you the number of times I've had my patients come and tell me, and I'm certainly I've seen it with my husband, people calling, but especially around this enrollment time, you get all these calls from all these different places. So who's most vulnerable for this? And who's just sitting there ripe for the picking? People who are in nursing homes. United Health denied those allegations and moved to dismiss Gannett's lawsuit. The Department of Justice, which declined to formally intervene in the case, opposed United Health's motion to dismiss. An April federal judge, Mark Treadwell, denied United Health's motion to dismiss, finding that Gannett's lawsuit puts forth, quote, substantial and concerning factual allegations that plausibly assert violations of federal protection meant to ensure vulnerable nursing home residents can make informed decisions about their medical care. The company continues to deny those claims and says Gannett was fired for engaging in illegal sales tactics similar to those alleged in his suit. In a statement, the company said its employees, quote, are trained on compliant interactions with nursing home staff and nursing home residents in accordance to the Medicare marketing guidelines and other applicable laws. Last week, shortly before The Guardian was to publish a second story providing additional detail about Gannett's pending lawsuit and two other whistleblower declarations, United Health filed a lawsuit against The Guardian in Delaware State Court, claiming the allegations were false and libelous. In a statement, the company said the article published by The Guardian is not only riddled with inaccuracies, it is so blatantly false and misleading that we have filed a defamation lawsuit to hold the publication accountable and bring the full truth to light. The Guardian has said that it stands by its, quote, deeply sourced independent reporting, which is based on thousands of corporate and patient records, publicly filed lawsuits, declarations submitted to the federal and state agencies, and interviews with more than 20 current and former United Health employees, as well as statements and information provided by United Health itself over several weeks. So we're going to see this go on more in this battle, but I just wanted to update you on that, what's happening with United Health, who are back in the news again. All right, here's another story because it directly affects us as nurses. And this is coming from Science. And it says Trump budget proposes killing Nursing Research Institute. And can I just say, we just kind of gotten, some boister for our research as nurses, and now they want to cut us out. It says hospital patients and their families often learn that nurses know far more about their condition and care than the doctors. Last year, a clinical trial published in Nature Medicine underscored that with an eye-popping number, hospitalized patients were 36% less likely to die if their caregivers used an artificial intelligence-based system that analyzes patterns of nurses' observations to provide an early warning that patients are deteriorating. And this is something that nurses often know. We see this. We recognize the patterns. We see that. That's part of that clinical and critical thinking skills that nurses we develop. It says now President Donald Trump's proposed 2026 budget asks Congress to eliminate the tiny, low-profile institute within the U.S. National Institutes of Health, NIH, that made the study possible. The National Institute of Nursing Research, which focuses on building evidence to improve patient care from hospitals to nursing homes to schools, supported the development of an early warning system and the recent clinical trial. NINR also provided training for several members of the Columbia University-led team behind the research. When she saw the proposal to abolish NINR, I was like, you've got to be kidding me, said Martha Curley, a clinical trialist in the pediatric intensive care unit at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. What are the patients and family going to do if they don't have any science to support how they can live with and die with their illnesses? NINR has funded key research in palliative care. If NINR goes away, nursing science will go away, said Michelle Ballas, Associate Dean for Research at the University of Nebraska Medical Center College of Nursing. That is our primary institute. There will be no funding to teach people how to do research in nursing. And that is a problem because you have people that do not understand healthcare and do not understand science making decisions like this. NINR, founded as the NIH Center for Nursing Research in 1986 and elevated to institute status back in 1993. So again, we've not been in existence very long. This is what I remember when it came out about them getting that institute status, because it was a really big thing that finally nursing was on parity with medicine. It's the NIH's third smallest institute. It has a $198 million budget, which is 0.4% of the $48.5 billion agency spending. So it's not even a full percent. But yet you want to take a hatchet to it. So you're talking about a very small institute in terms of investment that has yielded a very massive impact on the lives and well-being of people we serve, said Mary Naylor, a nurse scientist at the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing. Her seminal NINR-funded trial, published in 1999, showed that sending elderly hospital patients home with transitional nursing care from high-qualified nurses significantly reduced hospital readmissions and per-patient healthcare costs. But again, without this, we wouldn't have these different things. And so now let's go on. Let's skip down here. It says the Trump administration's budget, released in its final form on May 30th, also proposes eliminating 3 other small institutes and centers among the 27 that make up the NIH: the Fogarty International Center, the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities. Well, you knew he was going to get rid of them, right? Anything that has minority and disparities in it, they scared of him. So yeah, they're going to take care of that. And the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. So again, these very important entities, they're just going to wipe them away and not replace them with anything. How about we take away parades that we don't need? Let's try that. And how about we, downsize some of this golfing trips and get rid of that, so we don't have to pay all these Secret Service people to keep going around to these different places so you can play golf. I'd much rather you put a golf course set up on the West Lawn or something like that. Build a little mini one and just go out there and play and whack a ball all day and have fun. I don't care. And so I get passionate when it comes to what's happening in nursing, and the fact that you're turning to healthcare when we have so many crises in this country with our healthcare infrastructure as is, and now let's just throw a bomb and see what happens. Yeah, okay. So the day you end up going to the hospital and there's nobody to take care of you, and the people that are left there to take care of you are either burnt out or possibly don't even know what they're doing because they don't have a research to back it up, and we're just going to throw something at the wall and see what sticks. Remember this day. Remember this day. So on April 1st, he put Shannon Zinke, the NINR's director since 2020, on administrative leave and offered her a transfer position to the Indian Health Service in one of the several Western states. Zinke has been outspoken in promoting a focus on health equity at the NINR, a research topic Trump says aggressively has targeted. So again, anything that has to do with equity, inclusion, diversity, they're going to run scared of. And so, yeah, I oppose this a lot. This hits hard for nursing, and yeah, I don't know, nurses. What do you think? Maybe we need to start doing some things and really picketing some of our legislators who are running scared and allowing this to go on and not saying anything and not really doing anything. I don't know. Come election time, there may be a reckoning. All right, let's look here. And this is going to be our last story for the day. Before we get to our nurses making a difference story. This, let's see. Oh yes, this is coming out of Connecticut. This is from the news in Connecticut, and this is something that came up the last time, and I thought it was interesting, and so I wanted to bring this up because we're still having fallout from Operation Nightingale, unfortunately. So this fake nursing degree scam linked to more than 7,600 nurses in the U.S. and dozens still under investigation in Connecticut. So this happened in Florida, but nurses that went to those schools working in other places are now finding that they are no longer able to work. They have to surrender their license. So in 2023, I can't believe it was that long ago. And we're still talking about it. Man, a 2023 college degree scam rocked nursing communities across the U.S., calling into question the licenses of thousands of nurses and the care they provided patients. And even more are still under investigation 2 years later. More than 7,600 people in at least 6 states and Washington, D.C. so far have been tied, to Operation Nightingale, a massive federal investigation of nearly 24 nursing schools in Florida that are accused of providing fraudulent diplomas and transcripts. Many of the schools are now closed, authorities said. Which I have to say, as someone who tutors in the NCLEX, that's one of the questions that I have for these students. Is like, I'm just curious, where do you go to school? Because I just wonder, is there going to be any fallout again for some of these students? And I feel bad for them because some of them are innocent, were caught up into this, and they may have gone to legitimate schools or their plan was legitimate before, and then they fell on the wayside, and now everything they work for is being called into question. So it says in Connecticut, the State Board of Examiners for Nursing has already revoked or sought to voluntarily surrender of nursing licenses for 58 people tied to the scam. The State Department of Public Health is still investigating 60 more instances where an individual was able to receive a Connecticut nursing license based on fraudulent schooling tied to the federal investigation, which involves the U.S. Department of Justice and U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The fact that they're still working on this 2 years later shows how seriously they took this, said Don Capel, Director of Marketing and Communications for the National Council of State Boards of Nursing, which work with the state boards and federal authorities to identify the fraud cases. Nursing is such a vital and invaluable profession. There can be no compromise when it comes to patient safety and public care. Sorry, there's a mosquito in here. Okay. She also noted that it appears that no patients were harmed as a result of being cared for by a nurse who received their degree at one of the indicted schools. The fake degrees allowed the nurses to take the National Council licensure exam known as the NCLEX for registered nursing, federal authorities said. Passing the exam is required before a nurse can seek a license and employment, Capel said. Many obtained work after they passed the test using fake credentials, including transcripts that listed courses they never took. The federal Florida schools that were indicted starting in early 2023 were all for-profit entities that were not always providing the required number of classroom or clinical training for nursing, potentially putting the public at risk. The ramifications of the scam rippled through several states, requiring each state or regional nursing board that oversees the discipline of nurses to handle the cases in their own way. In each instance of a potential fraudulent degree, the person who obtained a nursing license from the Florida schools that were indicted were provided a due process and a hearing. In some cases, people who went to the Florida schools had received the required number of classroom and clinical hours. Although their credentials were initially under scrutiny, those people did not face discipline. In other cases, students may have been bilked by the schools because they had a language barrier or didn't understand what was needed to legally obtain a nursing license. Others were disciplined with their license revoked after the investigation revealed they likely knew the degree was fraudulent and that they should have taken more classes or clinical hours. A common thread among the people who received fake degrees was that they were already working as a licensed practical nurse, so they already had enough knowledge to pass the NCLEX, but didn't actually take the full number of courses or clinical hours to receive a nursing diploma. That's how many people were able to skirt the requirements, pass the national test, and receive licenses. In at least one Connecticut case, a woman who had been working in New York as an LPN for 10 years passed the national test after attending one of the Florida schools. She then obtained a nursing license in Connecticut based on the fraudulent credentials connected to the scam. Her license was revoked by the Connecticut Board of Examiners for nursing in February 2024 after a hearing. Her license to practice in Connecticut had been suspended since July 2023. In their final ruling issuing the revocation, the board said her testimony during the hearing was dubious and unconvincing since an LPN knew that the hours of clinical training would be required to obtain a nursing degree. Each board has decided whether the person was committing fraud. Capel's organization worked with federal and state authorities to identify fraud and notify health boards about nurses who may have received licenses based on fake diplomas and transcripts. Many of the cases have been adjudicated by state boards as the federal criminals' actions move their way through the courts, but the work is still continuing in some states like Connecticut, where dozens of people are still under investigation. The Connecticut board was notified by the National Council of State Boards of Nursing in November 2022 and is still working to identify people who obtain Connecticut nursing licenses by citing their fraudulent degrees. The most recent Connecticut action tied to Operation Nightingale occurred Wednesday when the Board of Examiners for Nursing suspended the license of Althea Rosemary Grant McLean, who obtained her nursing degree from Carleen Health Institute in Florida, whose owner was indicted by federal authorities in February. Carleen Norias, owner of Carleen Health Institute, is accused of money laundering and wire fraud, which authorities allege was committed when she sent fraudulent documents, including diplomas and transcripts, to potential employers indicating that people had finished the requirements for a degree when they hadn't. The other indictments issued in early 23 describe similar fraud schemes. In Connecticut, individuals are being investigated by DPH for fraudulent schooling tied to the federal probe, will have their license to practice in the state suspended until a hearing can be held. So there's more to the story, but head on over to the Hearst Connecticut Media Group, and you can read this, what's going on in Connecticut. And let's get to our nurse making a difference. So I just happened on this story as I was researching for today's segment, and I just thought this was great, and I wanted to share that. And this is the power of having money for nursing research. It says, Alumna builds mental health platform. This is coming from the School of Nursing in their press release from the University of Alabama at Birmingham School of Nursing. So it says, as her career evolved, Caroline Baker, MSN, CRNP, PMHNP, BC, BSN, MSN, believes this nursing profession has allowed her to maximize her skill sets and pursue her passions. The three-time alumna of the University of Alabama at Birmingham School of Nursing uses her clinical expertise as a nursing professional development specialist in the Center for Nursing Excellence and Center for Psychiatric Medicine at UAB Hospital to provide accessible mental health education on social media. I found that in nursing, the opportunities are endless. Many people come into the profession thinking that bedside care is the only avenue of nursing, but that could not be further from the truth. There are so many ways you can optimize your unique strengths and interests as a nurse, Baker said. After graduating from the school with her bachelor's in 2011, Baker started working as a staff mental health nurse at UAB. While she originally envisioned her career for herself as a labor and delivery nurse, she found a passion for mental health in this role. As she grew more settled in her own career, Baker found fulfillment in training new nurses and nursing students. Following encouragement from her peers and supervisors, she enrolled as a student in the school's Master of Science in Nursing, Nurse Educator Specialty track, earning her degree in 2015. Soon after, she returned to school again, graduating from the MSN Psychiatric Mental Health Nurse Practitioner Specialty in 2020. My degrees from UAB School of Nursing have been instrumental in shaping my professional identity and fulfilling my passion for education and outreach. The skills I gained in both programs laid the foundation for me to be an advocate in the mental health field. My professors equipped me with advanced therapeutic techniques, clinical knowledge, and assessment strategies. These insights helped me to speak directly to the needs and experiences of my community. In 2017, Baker found purpose through a new avenue of education, social media. She began sharing tips for managing mental health on her Facebook page and quickly gained a following. As her page gained traction, she realized the demand for more education, resources, and expertise. She later launched her company, The Mental Health Detox, in 2021. I decided to start the Mental Health Detox to normalize conversations about mental health and mental illness. I've become very passionate about providing those resources and tools to people. When I started sharing tips on social media, I realized that what is a second nature to me as a psychiatric nurse practitioner is not common knowledge for the average person. The Mental Health Detox is a platform for me to share my knowledge and make a difference. Today, Baker is the author of the 30-Day Mental Reset Workbook and Mental Health Tips for Everyday Life. She hosts workshops, offers life coaching and goal planning sessions with clients, and shares resources in hopes of helping people manage their mental illness. Baker encourages anyone considering the nursing profession to find their niche and lean into their passions. So there's more to the story from the release from the School of Nursing, but I just wanted to share that as a nurse making a difference, and this is why it's so important that we do what we do. All right, so that ends our segments for today. I want to leave you with a few announcements that are happening, just to know what's going on at Baxter Professional Services Health Education. All right, so we have a few classes coming up. So next week, Make sure I get this right. So no, it's not next week. All right. So in July, so we have some classes coming up in July. We will be reaching out to have our nursing assistant classes. So we are getting together our next cohort for our home health aide and nursing assistant classes. So if you're interested in that, we do have some information sessions that are available to you that we'll sign up. So go to the Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. We also on July the 9th will be our basic TB validation class as well. So you can come and join us for that. And then on July 16th, um, we will have additional training. So on July 16th, they'll be coming out for the Nurse Shark Academy. We'll be putting together our workshop for nurse business owners that will be coming up. And then we have our CPR training as well next month, and a variety of other things that are available at Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. So just be on the lookout. Again, there's a lot of family stuff that's going on at this time in my life. So be on the lookout. Keep an eye on our pages, and we'll be sure to share this information for you. And we hope to see you next week and go live. I'm going to leave you with this last little bit, and we'll see you later. Ready to turn your nursing skills into a thriving business? At the Nurse Shark Academy, we give you expert strategies, real startup guidance, and the support to go from employee to empowered entrepreneur. Join us and build the nurse-owned business of your dreams. Start today and join us at the nursesharkacademy.biz. All right, that ends our segment for today. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're following us on our Facebook pages, please smash that like button and give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. We greatly appreciate that. There's a lot of things that are happening in this community for this weekend with Juneteenth coming up. So be on the lookout for those things. There's several different celebrations that are happening across Anderson. And I look forward to speaking with you again. Have a great rest of your day.